Yes, I didn't see him. What are you looking so sad about, Champ?
I'm surprised. I mean, I'm really insulted. That's not right, what you just said.
What do you mean, what I just said?
I mean, I'm getting drink of water. I'm late getting home, but you talk. I said something about the greatest heavyweight champ, man. I'm a hometown man, and you talking about Joe Louis, man. Joe Louis wouldn't be nothing for me. Joe, I tell you, Joe, do you think you would have stood a chance with me?
Well, Clay, one time during my career, I went on a Bum of the Month tour.
Bum of the month? I would have been a bum compared to you.
Well, you've been on the tour.
What's happening, my people? It's Cass Sports again, back for another afternoon with the family. That's right. You know what time it is. If it's Monday through Friday, 2 p.m., it's the Boxtorian, bringing you all that boxing history. Boxing is the greatest sport of them all. That's why we love it. Can't get enough of it. Miss Cass, Irony Boxing. Salute to everyone and welcome to another episode of Cass Sports, The Boxtorian. Today, lower weight greats has the family today. It's Wednesday afternoon, the hump day edition of Cass Sports, The Boxtorian. Salute to Irony Boxing in the building bright and early today. Salute Irony. Yeah, we're going to talk about some lower weight fighters today, that don't get their mostly underrated, don't get the popularity and support they deserve. A lot of people don't even go down that low. 118 and below. A couple of these, we're going to talk about 6 of them. A couple of these fighters fought over 118, but the best work of their careers is what we're done at 118 or below. That's Carlos Zarate on the screen there. And we're going to be talking about Carlos Zarate. You got 6 of them. Carlos Zarate, Ricardo Lopez, Ida Joffre, Jose Legre, Lupe Pintor, and Lionel Rose. 6 lower class fighters. We're going to get them their props today. Okay? Yes, Carlos Zarate, remember, started out 25-0 out of the gate. Then his 25 knockouts, 25-0. His 26th fight was a unanimous decision, 26-0 with 25 knockouts. Then the next 26 fights of his career were all knockouts. So it was 52-0 with 51 knockouts. And when him and Wilfredo Gomez fought, the combined record was 73 wins, no losses, 72 knockouts between them. You know, the only decision being Zarate in his 26th fight, okay? So we're going to look at some of these lower weight class fighters today. There's a myth about they don't have the power and all of that, but I just told you the man was 52-0 with 51 knockouts, okay? So that's power, right? But first, let's look at our fight of the day to get started. And then we're going to talk about these lower weight fighters today. Got 6 of them. Okay, today's fight of the day is the Eastern Assassin, Larry Holmes versus Carl the Truth Williams, May 20th, 1985. Remembers Carl the Truth Williams and boxing shame. Remembering Carl the Truth Williams and boxing shame. Okay, the Eastern Assassin versus the Truth, May 20th, 1985. Okay, let's go. 40 years ago, a crime occurred. It went largely unnoticed outside the world of boxing, but that doesn't change the fact that it happened, or that nothing has ever been done about it. Of course, there's nothing extraordinary about this. Anyone who has followed the fight game for any length of time learns early on that the boxing ring is as much a place of heartbreak, disgrace, and injustice and corruption as it is where glory and victory happen. Heartbreak, disgrace, injustice, and corruption. Not that one ever really gets used to it, okay? But it's a part of boxing. Always has been, always will be. Mike Rem in the building. What's up, Mike? Larry Holmes, the Eastern Assassin, Larry Holmes versus Carl the Truth Williams. Fight of the day, 1985, 40 years ago. Okay. Yeah. The boxing ring is a place of heartbreak, disgrace, injustice, and corruption. Anybody that's been watching boxing for any amount of time knows that. So, Carl the Truth Williams is dead now. He's passed away. Stricken with cancer. He died in 2013 in Valhalla, New York. Sad news to fight fans who still recall the 1980s and a heavyweight division that was largely ridiculed at the time. But now, looking back, it looks like murderous row compared to the big men we have today. By just about any standard, 53 is young. to come to the end of one's time on this planet. But this was not the only reason to feel regret at the news of the death of Carla Truth Williams when it occurred. Okay, yeah, there's Holmes and Williams. Against Holmes, Williams right. Williams deserved much better in that fight because he clearly won it. But let's talk about it. For those old enough to recall his time near the top of the heavyweight division in the 80s and early 90s, Williams' death brought to mind that merely memories of a game battler, mixing it up with the likes of Tim Witherspoon, Mike Weaver, and Bert Cooper, but also the bitterness that accompanies a remembered wrong that was never righted. But then, robberies in the boxing ring almost never are, and they commonplace. In 1985, Williams challenged an aging Larry Holmes for the heavyweight championship of the world. By this time, Holmes had been on his own personal bum of the month trail for more than 2 years, avoiding the more dangerous contenders and facing strictly hand-picked opponents, proverbial tomato cans, whose lack of talent or experience made them easy prey for a gifted champion now in his twilight years. Here's another shot. The Truth Williams jab gave Holmes all kinds of trouble in that fight. Yeah. That picture that was happening all night. Jab gave Holmes all kinds of trouble. With the exception of his life and death struggle against Witherspoon 2 years before, the plan had worked beautifully for Holmes. A former sparring partner of Joe Frazier and Muhammad Ali, he still had loads of ring smarts and tenacity, plus one of the best jabs in boxing history. More than enough to handle guys like Marvis Frazier, Scott Frank, and David Bay. And despite his greater height and reach, Williams figured to fit in nicely with the rest of the no-hopers. How could a guy with only 16 fights on his record compete with one of the great heavyweights in boxing history? Okay, he was like 40-something and old, was in like 7 straight years as champion. How could somebody like Carla Truth Williams with 16 fights compete with Holmes at that point in his career? Nobody gave the Truth a chance. There's a picture of the Truth right there. Here it is, Carla Truth. No, nobody gave Truth a chance coming in this fight. 1959 to 2013, that's when he passed. Same age as I am. Well, he would have been 66 right now. So that's young with all the technology and medicine they got nowadays. But yeah, died from cancer in 2013. He would be 66 now. Okay, but nobody was giving the Truth a chance in this fight. But in front of a primetime national television audience, Holmes had been heavyweight champion since 1978. He found himself not in another routine title defense, but instead on the wrong end of a boxing lesson. Yes, the Truth was giving him a boxing lesson. To everyone's surprise, the irrepressible Williams out-jabbed the jabber, utilizing his height, reach, and youth to take round after round from the champion, Holmes. The fight was so obviously going the challenger's way that with a few rounds still left to go, the NBC commentating team started showing a series of photos from past momentous upsets, like James J. Braddock over Max Baer and Leon Spinks over Muhammad Ali. That's how bad it was. With a couple of rounds to go, it was 15 round, the 12th or 13th round, NBC started showing signs of big upsets because that's what was coming. The truth was on its way to one, right? But then the decision was announced. And while the television commentators expressed astonishment, longtime boxing fans were anything but surprised. Williams was supposed to lose. Holmes was supposed to win. And the judges followed the script. We've seen it many times before, and we've seen it many times since. That's Holmes and Michael Spinks in a later fight after that. Now, the 80s were arguably the high watermark for boxing in terms of mainstream popularity. Certainly the best decade since the 1920s. Now, championship fights were on regular television. And that same weekend of this robbery, there was another outrageous decision on the same network where Wilfredo Gomez somehow got the nod after being dominated by Rocky Lockridge. 2 suspicious verdicts within 24 hours had boxing fans in an uproar, demanding investigations and inquiries. Sound familiar? Does that sound familiar? Now, nothing of substance was done then, and nothing has been done in the decades which followed. Bad decisions are now, if anything, even more common and have done incalculable damage to the sport's image. Now, one of the cynical amusements of following boxing on Twitter now and we all do this now, is counting how many people write variations of the same sentiments between the final bell and of a competitive fight and the announcement of the scorecards. Please, God, let the judges get it right. And we all have thought that. Boxing Arnie, Mike Rim, Mr. Cass, all of us. After the final bell ring and before the scorecards are read, we've all sit there thinking that. I hope the judges get this right. You know? And that's crazy because we watch it on TV. They sitting right there at the ring apron and see the same thing we saw, but will give the wrong man the win. And it's not bad judging, it's corruption, it's cheating. It's not bad judging, it's cheating. But we've all sit there and said that after the final round and before the decision. I hope the judges get this right. I hope they don't give it to the wrong man. Yep, many times, especially in recent years. Now, the point here is not to decry yet again the absurdity of a sport incapable of consistently separating winners from losers, but instead to focus for a moment on the human cost of these bad decisions. Okay? When the judges get it wrong, they don't pay a price, but the victimized boxer does. Sometimes it's crushingly steep. Now imagine how different Carl the Truth Williams' career and life would have been had his hand been raised that night in Reno, Nevada. At the very least, he would have been able to cash in on $1 million rematch with Holmes. That might have helped him avoid the financial difficulties he faced after his time as a fighter ended. And he then started up as a second career as a security guard. He probably would have never had to be a security guard. If he'd have got his hand raised, got the $1 million rematch with Holmes, that would have definitely happened. But more likely is that being the first man to defeat Holmes by that time an acknowledged heavyweight great would have led to a string of title fights, with Williams earning big money. Instead, he was conveniently pushed aside after the Holmes fight. And while he went on to defeat guys like Jesse Ferguson and Trevor Berbick, and eventually received another title shot against Mike Tyson in 1989, he entered those fights not as the man who had schooled Holmes, the Eastern Assassin, but instead as the guy with the bad luck to lose a disputed decision to him. Instead of going in as the first man to beat Larry Holmes, he went in as the bad luck of the man losing a disputed decision to him. Big difference. Big difference. There's the shot of the truth after his career ended. Years after his boxing career. So, the simple fact is, Williams' whole life would have been different had the correct verdict been rendered and he became a heavyweight champion of the world. And this is what we should think about each and every time the judges cheat a fighter out of their rightful win. Not just about how the fans get cheated by bogus decisions or how these incidents damage the integrity of the sport. We should also reflect on how these injustices impact human lives. Okay? Look at Maxie Priest and the loss to George Kambosos when they cheated him. Right? His life would be totally different now. But it was prearranged it was going to be George Kambosos and Lomachenko. So Maxie Priest won 10 rounds at the minimum. Kambosos won 2, but Kambosos got his hand raised, right? Now, if you remember Dave Tiberi, but in 1992, he soundly defeated middleweight champion James Toney on national television. But the verdict went to Toney. Commentator Alice Wallar called it the most disgusting decision he had ever seen. And then Tiberi never fought again. Or consider how different Axel Schultz's life would be today had he been given the verdict he deserved over the heavyweight champion, Big George Foreman, in 1995. Erislandy Lara against Canelo. Gabriel Campillo, Steve Cunningham, Tyson Cage, Mauricio Herrera, the list goes on, would all have higher profiles and fatter wallets had the judges not cheated and done their jobs correctly. And consider all those Olympic boxing hopefuls whose hearts and dreams were broken by either incompetence or corruption. More likely corruption. This has got to stop. But it won't. It almost certainly won't. Okay? It definitely won't. It won't stop. There's so much money involved in this, you know. Yeah, there's Dave Tiberi we was just talking about. Whatever. That's not the fight I was talking about, though, because they gave Toney the decision that Tiberi deserved. Okay? So, for all we know, Carla Truth Williams might have had a satisfying and fulfilling life after his boxing career ended. We know next to nothing of his personal circumstances after that. But in his New York Times obituary, his sister was quoted as saying that he never really got over losing that fight to Holmes. Okay, that was his sister. She would know. She said he never got over that. That's because he didn't lose it, right? His sister said he never got over losing that fight to Holmes because he didn't lose it, right? Salute, Mike Masick. How are you today? Larry Holmes, Carla Truth Williams. Yeah, he never got over it because he didn't lose it, right? And that came from his sister saying he never got over it, but he didn't lose it. He won it, but then he was robbed by corrupt judges. And there still exists no mechanism by which to right such wrongs today. There's no greater shame in the sport of boxing than this. Men and women sacrifice themselves, work their entire lives and train and develop their skill, perform to the best of their abilities, and actually risk their lives in the process. And then we can't even be bothered to ensure that their fights are properly officiated and fairly judged. We should never forget the injustice that occurred to Carter Truth Williams. And we should find a way to finally put an end to what happened to him. But we won't, because boxing right now is and has always been summed up by 3 words: follow the money. Okay? And there you have it, the fight of the day. Follow the money. That's why you can't trust any sport, really, because there's so much money involved. But boxing is about the worst. Back in the old days, they used to call boxing the red light district of sports. And it's got even worse now. Okay? Follow the money. But today we're going to talk about 6 lower weight class fighters that, they don't get the, always underrated and not as popular as they should be. But we're going to give 6 of them their props today. Carlos Zarate, Ricardo Lopez, Ida Joffre, Jose Legua, Lupe Pintor, and Lionel Rose. Okay? That's today on Cast Sports The Box Story, bringing you all that boxing history. Oh, man. Okay. But how's everybody? It's hump day. Oh, there we go. We're getting closer to the big fight this weekend. You can't even trust them. Will the judges be paid? Or do they already have a predetermined verdict on these fights? We can't trust it. It's a shame because we have to watch the fight, and then after the bell sounds, waiting on a decision, we have to be wondering. I hope the judges get this right. They sitting right there on the ring apron. So they see what same thing we saw, but they're corrupt. Follow the money. Now, boxers in lower weight classes. It is Carlos Zarate right there. That was him on the thumbnail. And we're going to start off with him, okay? But boxers in lower weight classes are generally less popular and can be considered underrated due to a combination of cultural bias toward larger fighters. The perception that the bigger weight classes hit harder, differences in media coverage, and a smaller target demographic in key markets like the United States. Those are some of the reasons. Now, perception of power. Casual fans are often drawn to the raw power and highlight real knockouts, more common in the bigger weight classes. Now, the general public is amazed by large athletic individuals, whereas lighter weight classes, while often more technically skilled and faster, may not offer the same perceived dramatic finishing power. Perceived. Because the man on the screen, Carlos Zarate, had, I believe, 66 wins and 63 knockouts in his career, 25 straight to start his career. Wilfredo Gomez had like 30 straight knockouts or something like that to start his career. So the lower weight class is not having that dramatic finishing power. It's perceived. It's not a fact. It's not reality. Now, target demographic and media coverage. The average male weight in the United States is around 200 pounds, making it easier for fans to project themselves onto or relate more to fighters closer to their own size, which generally falls into the middle to heavier weight classes. Historically, United States television networks have prioritized broadcasting the heavier weight classes, which limits exposure enthusiasm for lighter divisions among the American audience. Cultural bias. There is a general cultural bias against smaller men, and this attitude can influence the fan base. Talent pool, nationality. Many elite lower weight class fighters are not from the United States or the major Western markets, which can limit their mainstream popularity or exposure. And if they are not specifically promoted to gain attention in those regions. Skill versus spectacle. While knowledgeable boxing fans often praise the superior technical skill, speed, and high punch output of lighter weight boxers, these nuanced aspects are sometimes lost on casual fans who prefer the simple spectacle of a potential one-punch knockout, which is a hallmark of heavyweight boxing. But that's perceived too, because you get a lot of one-punch knockouts in those lower weight classes. Okay? Ultimately, while the skill level in lower weight classes is often exceptionally high, the inherent draw of size and knockout power, perceived knockout power in the heavier divisions, makes it a more accessible and popular spectacle for a broader audience. Okay? Those are some of the reasons why the lower weight classes don't get the respect and props they deserve. Okay? Perceived lack of power and all that kind of nonsense. So now we're going to talk about Carlos Zarate. He did his best work at 118. And he had like a 90-something career knockout ratio. Okay? Career. Over 60 fights. I think his career knockout ratio was like 95%. Let me make sure before we start, but I believe it was 95% for Carlos. But how's everybody? It's the hump day. We're getting closer to the weekend and this big Riyadh season card we got coming up. Final press conference tomorrow, right? And the weigh-in Friday, and then Saturday is it. They in the ring. I think it's like 3 or 4 championship fights on the card. Let's see. Come on, Carlos. Carlos. Yeah, I was right. 95.4%. 66 wins out of 70 fights. 63 knockouts. That's 95.4% any day of the week. And twice on Sunday. Okay, Carlos Zarate is first. Okay. Excuse me for 1 second. Carlos Zarate of Mexico. Definitely in the top 10 when you're talking about Mexican fighters. Carlos is definitely top 10. Could be top 5, depending on who you're talking to. Close to top 5. I probably got him like 7, somewhere around in there. Maybe, I don't know. It could be top 5, but he's up in that area. But let's talk about it. Carlos Zarate. We got 6 lower weight fighters today. Bantamweight and lower. Now, Carlos fought at 122, but most of his work was done at bantamweight, 118, okay? Carlos Zarate, a force of nature. In the annals of Mexican boxing, a country rich with ring warriors, few names evoke as much awe and respect as Carlos Zarate. Known for its devastating power, clinical finishing ability, and icy composure in the ring, Zarate carved out a legacy in the 1970s that still resonates today. A bantamweight 118-pounder with the power of a heavyweight, Zarate's career was defined by an astonishing knockout ratio, unforgettable title reigns, and a comeback that showcased his warrior spirit. Yeah, Carlos, so 95.4% knockout ratio. Okay? But a lot of people don't pay attention to those lower weight classes. Some people don't even know there's a weight class at 105. Still today. Okay? Yeah. Now, early life and amateur career for Carlos. Carlos Zarate was born on May 23rd, 1951 in Tepito, Mexico, a gritty neighborhood in Mexico City, often referred to as the cradle of Mexican prize fighters. He grew up in humble surroundings where street fighting was common and opportunities were scarce. Like many Mexican fighters of his era, boxing was both a passion and a means of survival and a way out. Okay? Not just many Mexican boxers of that era, boxers, period. You know, a means of both a passion and a way out, a means of survival. Zarate had a brief but impressive amateur career, reportedly amassing a record of 33 wins, 3 losses, with all 33 amateur wins coming by knockout. Now that's incredible, because you don't see too many amateur knockout ratios like that. 100% knockout ratio in the amateurs. You know, most times you think of amateur, you think about piling up the points because you only got those 3 rounds, right? But Carlos had that one punch knockout power. All 33 of his wins were by knockout in the amateurs. His concussive power was apparent even in the unpaid ranks, and it didn't take long for him to turn pro. He made his pro debut in February of 1970 at the age of 18. Professional rise. A knockout artist emerges immediately. Okay? A knockout artist emerges immediately. Zarate's professional career took off with a string of brutal knockouts. His early opponents stood little chance against his straight punches and granite boxing shots. Okay? By 1974, he had compiled a staggering record of 30-0, with 29 of those wins coming by knockout, right? And the first 25 was knockouts. The one decision was in his 26th fight. And after that 30-0, he had like 20 some more fights, straight knockouts, okay? But 30-0, 30 knockouts. 29 knockouts. In 1976, after years of systematically dismantling regional opposition, Zarate was given a shot at the WBC bantamweight title against reigning champion Rodolfo Martinez, another Mexican standout. In a spectacular performance, Zarate stopped Martinez in the 9th round to capture the title. He had arrived at the top and did it in typical Zarate fashion, with unrelenting pressure and lethal precision. Unrelenting pressure and lethal precision. That's where he got his first title. Now reigned as WBC bantamweight champion from 1976 to 1979. Had a 3-year reign, and that's incredible back then. Okay. Carlos Zarate held the WBC bantamweight title from 1976 to 1979. And during this period, he was arguably the most feared puncher in the world, pound for pound, of any weight class. And he was at 118. Most feared puncher in the world, pound for pound. He successfully defended his title 9 times, and almost every challenger was overwhelmed by his strength and technique. His signature style was deceptively simple: a stiff jab, stunning body shots, and a straight right hand that could end fights instantly. Okay? A straight right hand that could end fights instantly. Pronto, immediately. Right? One of the highlights of his reign came in 1977 when Zarate faced Alfonso Zamora, the WBA bantamweight champion, in a non-title fight, dubbed the Battle of the Z-Boys. Yeah, neither one of their belts were on the line. Now, both men were undefeated with over 20 consecutive knockouts apiece, okay? So, somebody was going to sleep in this one. Just who and when. The fight was as violent as anticipated. Zarate stopped Zamora in the 4th round, solidifying his place as the best bantamweight in the world, okay, at that time. Still one of the best, tops. At this point in his career, Zarate had built up a record of 45-0 with 44 knockouts, an almost mythical stat line. And he had, that was almost like 20 something in a row, okay? 44-0, 45 and over, 45 knockouts. 44 knockouts. That's where his record stood at that point. Okay? For the people who think there's no power down there in those divisions. That's him and Wilfredo Gomez there. That's a great fight. The Wilfredo Gomez fight and first career defeat. Now, in this coming into this fight, they had a combined record of 73-0 with 72 knockouts. Wilfredo had knocked out everybody he had faced, and Carlos just had that one decision on his record. But they both were undefeated, 73-0 combined record with 72 knockouts between them. So again, somebody was getting stopped. Just who and when in this fight. Didn't need no judges. Judges could have just sat out in the audience and watched. In October 1978, Duarte dared to be great by moving up in weight to challenge Wilfredo Gomez, the Puerto Rican super bantamweight phenom. So he went up to 122. Now the fight took place in Gomez's backyard of San Juan, Puerto Rico. And tensions were high between Mexican and Puerto Rican fans. Okay? Yeah, Duarte dared to be great. He went up in weight and went to Gomez's backyard. Despite a spirited start, Duarte was outgunned by Gomez's speed and power at 122 pounds. He was knocked down multiple times and stopped in the fifth round. It was Duarte's first professional loss, and it would mark a turning point in his career. Controversial loss to Lupe Pintor in retirement. Lupe Pintor was another powerful Mexican. Lupe is on this list. We're going to get to Lupe. Controversial loss to Lupe Pintor in retirement. In 1979, Duarte made what would be his final defense of the WBC bantamweight title against Lupe Pintor, a rising star from Mexico City, in a bitterly contested 15-round battle. Pintor was awarded a controversial split decision victory, a decision that outraged many fans and experts. Many observers believe Duarte had done enough to retain his title. They really thought Duarte had did enough to keep his title, but the judges didn't think so, and that's what counts. The corrupt judges, right? Now, disillusioned and frustrated, Duarte abruptly retired after the fight. He was only 28 years old at the time, and he had a record of 52 wins, one loss, and he had 51 knockouts. So 2 losses. He also had the loss to Gomez and Pintor. But really 1 because he didn't lose that one. But he still had 52 wins with 51 knockouts and officially 2 losses on his record. And he retired after that fight, but he made a comeback. Let's talk about his comeback and his final retirement for Carlos Duarte. Yeah, that's Duarte. I don't know who that is he's fighting there. Comeback and final retirement for Carlos. After several years away from the ring and a battle with personal issues, including struggles with substance abuse and depression, Duarte mounted a comeback. In 1986, he scored a series of wins over fringe contenders, recapturing some of his old form. And he retired in 79, so he was away for like 7 years, right? Because he lost to Pintor in 79 and retired, came back in 1986. In 1987, he challenged Jeff Fenech for the WBC Super Bantamweight title in Australia, but was stopped in the 4th round. A final attempt at glory came in 1988 when he faced Daniel Zaragoza, another future Mexican legend. Zaragoza outboxed Duarte and handed him his 3rd career loss, and then he retired. Following that fight, Duarte retired for good, closing a book on a legendary career. Legacy and honors. Bruce Gass, boxing, jazz, and more in the building. Yeah, today, salute Bruce Gass. We're looking at some lower weight fighters, A lot of times they don't get the correct props and respect. A lot of underrated fighters down there. So we got 6 of them today. Finishing up Carlos Zarate now. Salute, Bruce Gas. Yeah, legacy and honor. Now, Carlos Zarate finished with a professional record of 66 wins, 4 losses, right? 4 losses. And he had 63 knockouts. Knockout ratio of 95.4%. Remains one of the best in boxing history among fighters with 50-plus wins. In 1994, he was inducted into the International Boxing Hall of Fame and is widely regarded as one of the greatest bantamweights of all time. I don't know why he didn't go in 1990 in the first year, but he did get in there in 94 and still regarded today as one of the greatest bantamweights of all time. Zarate's rivalry with Wilfredo Gomez is considered one of the most iconic Mexico versus Puerto Rico classics. His knockout win over Alfonso Zamora remains one of the most anticipated and celebrated Mexican showdowns ever staged. Yeah, Mexico versus Mexico, him and Zamora is one of the most famous Mexico versus Mexico fights ever. Carlos Zarate and Alfonso Zamora. Zarate inspired generations of Mexican fighters with his combination of grace, grit, and thunderous power. Fighters like Julio Cesar Chavez, Juan Manuel Marquez, and Ricardo Lopez often cite Zarate as an influence, and even some more recent champions that's fighting today. You know, they often cite Carlos Zarate as an influence. Carlos Zarate. Okay, the next lower class fighter going to be Benito. Ricardo Lopez. Benito himself finished undefeated. I always said he was undefeated in the amateurs, but now I'm hearing he had 1 loss. I haven't tracked it down yet, but yeah. It was always said that he was undefeated in the amateurs, but more recently I heard he had 1 loss in the amateurs. And I'm going to track it down and see for sure. If Benito, that would have been the only loss in his life. I thought he was undefeated at the amateur level, but we're going to see. But right now, we're going to talk about it. Benito. Ricardo Lopez. That was his nickname, Benito. Okay, let's get into Ricardo. How's everybody this Wednesday afternoon? Hump day. Thanksgiving is next week, right? Holidays just don't seem like holidays anymore. But it is next week. Thanksgiving. But the big fight is this weekend. Big card. Devin B. Norman, David B. Benavidez, Yard, Abdullah Mason, Sam Noakes, Bam on that bad boy. That's going to be a doozy. But right now, Benito, Ricardo Lopez. Okay, let's get into it. Ricardo Benito Lopez, 51 wins, no losses, 38 knockouts for his career. Now, Ricardo Lopez retired with an outstanding unbeaten record that surpassed the famous 50-0 of Floyd Mayweather Jr. and Rocky Marciano's 49-0. This great little Mexican, who stood 5'5" tall, defended his WBC strawweight title 21 times, a record for the division to rival the great bigger men such as champions Larry Holmes and Joe Louis. I think Holmes had 20 and Joe Louis had 25. Benito had 21. Growing up and turning pro for Benito. Born July 25th, 1966, Ricardo Lopez grew up in Cuernavaca, Mexico. And from the age of 12 until 18, he compiled an amateur record of 37-1. I haven't been able to track down that one loss. I thought it was 38-0, but we're going to find out. Picking up 4 consecutive Mexican national titles along the way. At age 18 in 1985, Lopez turned pro in his hometown and put together a string of 7 knockouts. 4 years later, in 1989, after compiling a record 23-0, Lopez fought for the WBC Continental Americas title and knocked out Ray Hernandez in 4 rounds. A few months later, in 1990, he defended this title against Jorge Rivera, scoring another sensational knockout to show that it wasn't just the heavyweights that could put on a brutal display of punching power, but just the heavyweights that could do that. Okay? We'll be looking at these lower weight class fighters today. Start of his reign, when he got his title. Start of his reign. On October 10th, 1990, Ricardo upgraded his WBC to a world championship because he had the Continentals, America's WBC. He upgraded that to a world championship when he defeated the minimum weight champion, Tadayuki Ohashi of Japan. Lopez toured various countries in Asia, defending his title against credible contenders. He then unified the division with the WBO after defeating Puerto Rico's Alex Sanchez in 1997. And then he captured the WBA title too in 1998 after defeating Nicaraguan Vicente Alvarez in their rematch. Their first fight was ruled a technical draw after Lopez suffered a terrible cut from an accidental headbutt, ending Lopez's 47-fight winning streak. Okay? Yeah. And the rematch was settled, however, in a split decision in Lopez's favor, despite Alvarez coming in 12 pounds heavier than Lopez. Yeah, Alvarez came into the fight 12 pounds heavier, but Lopez got the rematch, okay? And that draw was the only blemish on his record, if you can call it a blemish. He had a 47-fight winning streak before that draw with Lopez. Then he's fighting South African Patello. I forgot his first name. Yeah. Samba, something like that, Patello. Now, expanding his conquest. After Lopez had vacated his titles, he moved up in 1999, targeting the IBF champion in the junior flyweight division, Will Grigsby. And he beat Grigsby. And he defended his newly acquired title until 2001, when he noticed his reflexes slowing up. He said, "I saved money from the ring for my family. I didn't want to be a great champion in a psychiatric hospital." And there's a shot of him in JCC there. Yeah, JCC was a little heavier for him. JCC was up around lightweight, super featherweight, lightweight, so they would have never have met. Ricardo wasn't going up that far, but that's a shot of him. Two of Mexico's greatest, okay? Both top 5 all-time Mexican fighters right there, them two. The legacy of Ricardo, legacy. No doubt, because of his small size, Ricardo Alfredito Lopez often flies under the radar among many boxing fans. However, there was nothing small about Lopez's achievement or his impressive ring ability and punching power. Lopez holds a record, along with Joe Louis and Floyd Mayweather, for consecutive title fights without a loss. And his retired unbeaten streak is among the most impressive in boxing history. Julio Cesar Chavez and Salvador Sanchez are seen as having waved the flag of Mexico in the boxing world with the most honor. But it would be a mistake to think that the great little man Ricardo Finito Lopez doesn't deserve to be among such company when observing history. Yeah, if he fought like above 126, he would be a household name, okay? If he had went up as far as like 126, Finito would be a household name in boxing. But he fought at the smallest weight class of them all. Minimum weight or straw weight, 105. Okay. So yeah, he don't get the recognition he deserves. That's why we recognizing him today. Okay, next is going to be Ida Joffer. Ida Joffer is next. Okay. Okay, let's get into Ida Joffer. Al Booker. Is Al Booker in the building? Been a member for 8 months of Cast Sports. Yep, the great Al Booker. Salute, Al Booker. I see the thing said he's been around for 8 months, but that must be indicating that he's in here. Yeah, Ida Joffer. Venezuela. I can't guess it off the top of my head. Excuse me for 1 minute. Where he's from. We're gonna find out in one moment. Ooh, man. Man. This guy's out there cooking something good. I'm getting ready to end the show right now and go eat. But no, I'm just kidding. Ida Joffer is next. Ooh. I'm smelling good out there. Can't think of where Ida Joffer is from. For the life of it. Yeah, but salute Al Booker. In the building. Okay, good to see you. And a member for 8 months. All right. Yeah. Mr. Hot Grease was a member. I haven't seen him in a long time. Mm-hmm. I saw him on some other channels. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, Ida Joffer. It's going to be the next one we talk about. Talked about some great fighters in the lower weight classes today, Al Booker. We talked about Carlos Zarate and Ricardo Lopez so far. Now Ida Joffer. There's Ida right there. Yeah. Is that Ida Joffer? Yeah. Yeah, that's Ida. Okay. Brazil. Yeah, he's thought to be the best fighter to come out of Brazil. Ida is. Mm-hmm. Now, he represented Brazil in the 1956 Olympics and then turned professional in 1957 at age 21. His nickname was the Golden Bantam, and his final record was 72 wins, just 2 losses, and 4 draws with 50 knockouts. Okay, it's like almost 70% knockout ratio, not bad. He was one of the few champions to have never suffered a knockout in 78 fights, was never knocked out. Now, he was born March 26, 1936. He's considered to be the best Brazilian boxer of all time, and arguably the greatest bantamweight of all time. Yeah, I got him number 1 as far as bantamweights of all time. Yeah, Ida Joffer. Probably in everybody's top 5, any historian's top 5. I got him at number 1. In an article by Dan Kukko, director of the International Boxing Research Organization, he calls Joffer the second fighter in boxing history. I mean, the best pound-for-pound fighter in boxing history. And he was inducted into the International Boxing Hall of Fame in 1992. Yep. And most people got him in the top 25 of all time. Somewhere in there. Pound for pound, yeah. With one-punch knockout power and ease of hand, he also was a slickster with great technical skills and reflexes in the style of a Sugar Ray Robinson. He had the hook and the straight right hand. He had it all. A classic body puncher who would wear his opponents down before moving upstairs for the kill. He did his work in a bobbing and weaving manner. The Cypher Boxing Zone's biography of Joffer describes him as follows. Eder had everything a great fighter must possess. To top off the package, he also had an iron chin and resilience of a Jake LaMotta, Conor Wasilio, or Matthew Saad Muhammad. Yeah, he had the chin, gas tank, everything. And a great offensive boxer, too. He could do it all. Perhaps his most amazing quality was his ability to adapt. Joffrey was a very intelligent fighter who could change his style to adjust to any kind of opponent. He could be cute, brawl, anything. The guy was a fistic work of art, and he did all this as a vegetarian. Right? All this as a vegetarian. In 1961, he TKO'd Piero Rollo in round 10 to win the National Boxing Association World Bantamweight title in Brazil. Yeah, NBA was one of the big ones. But it was just in 62, it became the World Boxing Association. So that was like toward the end of it there. But he won it in 1961. Okay. In 1965, he would lose his WBC and WBA bantamweight titles to the Fighting Geraldo in a highly controversial split decision in Nagoya, Japan. Geraldo seemed like he got some home cooking in that one. Now, Geraldo would beat him again by a razor-thin margin in Tokyo in 1966. So he went over to Japan and fought him 2 times and lost both times by split decision. Both fights with the Japanese warrior, the Fighting Geraldo, were savage ones. Losing for the second time to Geraldo prompted Joffrey to retire, but he would make a successful comeback 3 years later. Geraldo was the only boxer to beat Joffrey in his career, who many considered to be invincible. Many considered the Fighting Geraldo to be invincible. He was the only one to beat Joffrey. Those were his only 2 losses. And the Fighting Geraldo was inducted into the Hall of Fame in 1995. And many consider him Japan's greatest fighter ever. Yeah, he's another one of those great lower weight class fighters. We're not going to cover him today, but yeah, Fighting Geraldo. Fighting Geraldo finished 55-7. Now, Joffrey would then close out his spectacular career by winning 25 consecutive fights, including the WBC featherweight title, and 37-2 at the time, also in 1973. Winning his second career, he won the WBC title, became champion again. Yeah. Mm-hmm. He won that against Jose Legre, who's also on this list. Now, Joffrey defended the title once, a 4th round icing of the great Mexican fighter Vicente Saldivar. Many of his opponents during this streak were tough hombres with impressive records. Legre, for example, would in his career with an astounding record of 134 wins, 12 losses, 4 draws. And we're going to get to Jose too. Having become inured to the 2 controversial decisions to Geraldo in Japan, Joffrey fought his remaining fights in Brazil. He wasn't going to Japan no more. He fought the rest of his fights in Brazil. His last fight was a points win against Mexican Octavio Gomez. And Gomez came in 53 wins, 15 losses, 5 draws. And Joffrey was 40 years old at the time of his last fight. Mm-hmm. By going undefeated in his first 50 fights, he managed to bookend his career in a unique, positive way. 50 in front, won his first 50, and won his last 25. Only 2 losses in between, right? Even a great Sugar Ray Robinson, whom Joffrey is often compared when pound-for-pound discussions take place, did not have such an auspicious start. Mm-hmm. Sadly, few videos on Joffrey fights apparently exist. His fights with Geraldo and a complete version of his first win over Jose Medal on August 18, 1960 in Los Angeles can be found. No other complete fights are known to exist. Thus, historic accounts and word of mouth are the only means of learning about this fighter's greatness. However, there's a documentary entitled O Grande Campeão, with film highlights of it, though most occurred near the end of his career. Okay, so yeah, not much film of him, of either. so we can just call him the greatest fighter who fought under the radar, Eater Joffer. Okay? So next, we're going to take a look at, we got 3 more to go. 6 lower class fighters today. I mean, lower weight, not lower class. Next is Jose Legba. Yeah. Next is Jose Legba. Well, we said we're going to take a look at Jose too. And then Jose, then we got Lupe Pinto of Mexico and Lionel Rose of Australia. None of these fighters fought over 118. Well, they had a fight or two over 118, but they did most of the work from 118 on down. Most of them are bantamweight, except for Ricardo Lopez. The rest of them are all bantamweights, but did most of their work at bantamweight. I don't think Eater Joffer fought anywhere else but bantamweight. We get ready to talk about Jose Legba now. I think. Come on, man. Okay, here we go. Jose Legba of Cuba. Yeah, he was a Cuban fighter. Jose was. Talking about 6 lower weight class greats today. Now, Jose Legba of Cuba. There's Jose up there. Excuse me for 1 second. Okay, let's go with Jose Legba. Some fighters use references to help buffer their lobby. For Thailand's Kosai Galaxy, it was Minnie Tyson. A decade prior, somebody went by the Pocket Cassius Clay. Jose Legba didn't require the tag, not historically anyway. Few would contend that the Swiss featherweight was in the same strata as the greatest, but for a journey that included altercations with Alexis Arguello, Eater Joffer, Vicente Saldivar, Howard Winstone, and Johnny Ramachan. He was no less willing than that heavyweight who is partly worshipped for ducking nobody. They kind of look like Ali a little bit, don't he? And surely, by any standard, just 11 losses in 148 fights isn't half bad, okay? 11 losses in 148 fights ain't bad at all. Born and bred in Cuba, Legba found himself in the same basket as Jose Nopales when Fidel Castro put a lid on pro boxing, right, in 1961. Different to Legba, different to Nopales with the butted moves, he left Mexico and ended up in Spain, where he eventually obtained citizenship. So Legba ended up in Spain. Nopales ended up in Mexico. Once there, his presence was not unlike that of the Inquisition, chastising opponent after opponent. The majority of his key fights he lost, but aside from a disastrous finale against the young Alexis Arguello, Legba gave everyone trouble, and each attendee their money's worth. When Britain's Howard Winstone barely salvaged a decision in Blackpool, it was Jose who won the claim of 1,000 foreigners. A lot of people say Jose won that fight too, but it was against the Britain in Great Britain, against a Brit in Great Britain. So, you know, and they believe in home cooking over there. Same back then. Born in Baracoa during the spring of 1943, that's Cuba's easternmost city, Legba became part of a nation already proud in the art of trading blows. Kid Chocolate was, and forever shall be, treated like a god on those sultry, hurricane-prone shores. But there was a middleweight, the Kid Tenero, who was 3 months from beating Homer Williams. 3 minutes from beating Homer Williams. The year prior, he had beaten Ezra Charles. Tonero was one of those poisonous globetrotters who make it their job to make others fights, make it hell in fights against others. Now, once retired, little did the 38-year-old veteran know he would go on to manage Legua, who was then 5 years old. Now, before the revolution, the only way to reach Baracoa was by boat, which didn't improve Jose's prospects, which were fair game to end up supporting the banana and coconut industry. Boxing pleasantly intervened, and come his 17th year, Legua had his first pro fight. Yeah, he was going to be picking bananas and coconuts and stuff, but he became a boxer and turned pro at 17 years old. Now, taking place in Havana, he had to travel 540 miles away from his home to begin punching, and started out making peanuts. Jose stayed in Cuba for as long as the government would permit pro boxing, and then he first went to Mexico, where he suffered a knockout defeat for his troubles. Then he came back to drop a decision before returning to Mexico for the best part of 2 years. A nice little run ended with another one of those insignificant defeats. It was time for a change, however, and the Spanish capital, Madrid, was the top choice, so ended up in Spain. Hardly a random move. Legua had come to find his master. That's where Tonero had went to, right? Who ended up being his trainer. He had went to Spain. Now, Tonero had been living in Barcelona, forced to leave Cuba when the prospect of boxing vanished. There was plenty to admire in Legua, not to mention his handsome Broadway features. The connection with Muhammad Ali worked even on more than one level, and so he kind of looked like Muhammad. It made too much sense for them not to join forces, and there was no messing around. 19 fights were neatly condensed into 1964. What, 19 times? A single draw later prevented a flawless year, okay? 18-0 with one draw in 1964. Performing in Madrid, Barcelona, Valencia, Bilbao, and Tenerife, Legua gave the impression of a man who left himself just enough time between travels to jump in and out of the ring. In the summer of 1965, Legua's Spanish rally was interrupted with a trip to Mario, England. The reason was Howard Winstone. Now, at that time, Winstone was one contest short of commencing his famous trilogy with Vicente Salvador. And so a stress-free encounter was preferred. After 10 rounds, blood trickled from Winstone's left eye, and nothing was certain before the scores were given. Winstone kept his date with the champion alive barely. Had it been judged anywhere else other than Great Britain, Legua would have won hands down, as he managed to outbox Winstone. But it was, like I said, he was fighting in Britain, and they believe in the home cooking over there. So Winstone got the nod, okay? Legua had a slim body, and the majority of Legua consisted of limbs with long arms and a pair of amazingly long legs. It was a little jerky, but nonetheless a gliding type of movement, reminiscent of Ali. His casual guard urged opponents to press the attack so he could flick the left. Particularly aggressive fighters found out how nauseating it was to catch it. Back in Madrid now, the one thing he lacked, he started to develop: concussive power. So close yet so far. Jose could have taken defeat very personally. that he was never good enough. It's easy to be negative, as Buster Douglas would remind us. Instead, Legler intensified his work ethic after that close loss to Winstone in England, appearing a whopping 23 times in 1966, fighting with added venom. 14 of those fights were terminated before the distance. Now, the dictatorship over Spain was back on, and nobody was safe. In 1967, Francis Desmarais lost his European title in less than 3 rounds. Legler had little use for the European strap and gave it up. He won the European strap, but he gave it up. Starting in 1968 with back-to-back wins over Ernesto Miranda. Back in England, Winstone had magically found himself in possession of the 126-pound WBC title. And 11,000 Welshmen were keen to witness the man defend it again. Fortunately for Winstone, it was originally asserted about Legler's punches that they lacked weight and authority. Now, this time, stronger at age 25, he let go with a right hand and down went Winstone. He got up, but a successive barrage put him down for a second time. He got up again. There would be no more knockdowns, but the champion's left eye became swollen, and then it shut. And Legler finally got his title. He went back over there and he beat Winstone in their second meeting. Now, there had been talk that Legler had developed into a superior fighter. And the chances of Australia's Johnny Framatron taking his title were 3-1 against him. And Legler stupidly agreed, dropping his hands and refusing to be seated in between rounds. Jose taunted his opponent, but began to feel the pace when Framatron wouldn't budge. Having never been 15 rounds before, Legler started to tire, allowing a bigger man to scoop the final heats. Took all the final rounds, and Legler lost his title. Now, fractured right thumb wasn't a bad excuse, and being awarded only 3 rounds in that fight. But a loss was as far away from the script as Clay beating Liston once. Meanwhile, Vicente Saldivar had gotten restless in retirement and decided to make Legler his first target. Dropped in the 3rd round and looked mighty promising for Jose as he stood over the revered Mexican. As the fight wore on, a familiar story retold itself. As Legler watched his lead deteriorate with each round, he started getting tired again. And he lost to Saldivar. But he ended up being a 2-time champion. Jose Legler did. And his final record was, he ended up at, let's see. Let me find Jose's record before we go to Lupe Pintor next. Yeah, next is Lupe Pintor, though. It's getting late. We got to get all 6 of these in. We only got 2 more, though, I think. Okay, Jose Legler had a final mark of, I know I said it earlier, but I lost track of it. Ended his career at box rec. 129 wins, 11 losses, and 4 draws, 49 knockouts. Wow. 144 fights. That's 11 losses for Jose Legler. Not bad at all. Okay. So next we're going to go to Lupe Pintor, another Mexican fighter. Lupe. Okay. Excuse me for 1 second. There's Lupe and and Wilfredo Gomez. Lupe lost to him. Every time I go over there near that door, that food smell gets strong. Man, what time is it? Man. Okay, Lupe Pintor, great bantamweight fighter. He had to fight with the Welshman, where the guy ended up dying, and they put a statue up over in Wales, and his family requested that Lupe Pintor come over and unveil it, right? So that was a very good gesture there. Like we was talking about yesterday, the families don't never blame the fighter for it. You know, that could be that fighter themselves, the one laying there, you know, hurt like that. So yeah, it's boxing. Okay. Getting Lupe ready for us. And then we got Lionel Rose, the Australian boxer. Some of the top lower weight fighters, mostly bantamweights. All bantamweights except for Ricardo Lopez. The rise, reign, and resolve of Lupe Pintor. Yeah, that's him on the left and Wilfredo Gomez on the right in that picture right there. Check the chat out real quick before we continue. Did I miss anybody? No. Okay. The rise, reign, and resolve of Lupe Pintor. Again, that's him on the left. It's Wilfredo Gomez. Guadalupe Lupe Pintor, born in 1955 in Cuajimapa, Mexico. That was a rough suburb of Mexico City. He rose from poverty and hardship to become one of the most respected and courageous champions in boxing history. Nicknamed El Indio, Pintor combined skill, grit, and a relentless fighting spirit, carving his name into the annals of boxing during the golden era of bantamweights and super bantamweight divisions, 118 and 122. Yeah, that was the golden era when he fought. 70s-ish. Around in there. Okay. There's a shot of up close of Lupe Pintor. Yeah, he was a killer too. I remember watching him fight in the 70s. Wow. He was a sure enough killer. Lupe was. Early life, fighting for survival. Lupe Pintor's early years were marked by adversity. Growing up in an impoverished neighborhood, he was surrounded by violence and economic struggle. From a young age, Pintor took to street fighting as a way to survive. These raw beginnings laid a foundation for his rough, no-nonsense ring style. Rough, no-nonsense style. Boxing offered a way out, and Pintor entered the pro ranks in 1974 at the age of 19. He fought frequently, like many Mexican boxers of the era, gaining experience and recognition through sheer volume and grit. Climbing the ranks. Pintor's early pro career was defined by a string of impressive performances, showcasing a textbook Mexican style, relentless pressure, powerful body shots, and an iron chin. After suffering a split decision loss in his debut, he went unbeaten in his next 32 fights, establishing himself as a top contender. In 1979, Pintor earned a shot at the WBC bantamweight title, then held by his legendary compatriot Carlos Zarate, who was 52-0 with 51 knockouts at the time. The fight was an epic all-Mexican showdown at the Forum in Inglewood, California. The controversial victory over Carlos Zarate. Remember, we talked about that in the Zarate part. The controversial victory. Very close fight, and Carlos came in as a champion, but Pintor got the nod in that. On June 3rd, 1979, Pintor defeated Zarate in a controversial 15-round split decision, becoming the WBC bantamweight champion. Now, many observers felt Zarate had done enough to win, but Pintor's aggressive finish swayed the judges. Pintor, who had been standing quietly in his corner, opened his mouth in obvious surprise when the verdict was announced at the end of the 15-round fight at Caesar's Palace. Zarate, on the other hand, showed little emotion at the decision, although he did cover his head with his gloves. Pintor, who weighed in at the class limit of 118 pounds, went down in the fourth round from a right-left combination to the head. There were no other knockdowns there were no other knockdowns in the fight. In the 10th round, Zarate bloodied Pintor's nose. In the 11th, he opened a cut above the new champion's left eye. Throughout much of the fight, Zarate appeared to be on the defensive, while Pintor kept pushing him back. Most of Zarate's punches were counterattacks. This aggressiveness clearly benefited Pintor in the eyes of the judges, as he threw hard, fast punches and focused on targeting the head. Most major media outlets thought this fight was a robbery. I've never seen that one. I'm going to have to check that one out. The win launched Pintor into stardom, but also created a lifelong rift between the two Mexican fighters. Zarate retired in protest shortly afterward, though he did return years later, like 7 years later. And Pintor defended the title with the pride of a nation on his shoulders. Fight, everybody. Most people said he lost. Yeah, that's him and the guy that died. I can't think of his name. I'm going to have it in a minute. Johnny Owen. Yeah, Johnny Owen. Championship reign and legendary battles. Pintor held the... Wait a minute, is that Johnny Owen? Pintor held the WBC bantamweight title from 1979 to 1983, making 8 successful defenses. His reign was filled with memorable wars. Versus Alberto Davila. Pintor defeated the Slick Davila by split decision in a tightly contested fight in 1980. Versus Jovito Rengifo and Johnny Owen. Pintor displayed his resilience and power. The tragic fight with Johnny Owen. Okay. Yeah, that is Owen. Yeah. That's Owen on the left, Pintor on the right. The tragic fight with Johnny Owen. One of the most defining moments of Pintor's career came on September 19th, 1980 against Johnny Owen, a quiet and beloved Welsh fighter. The two engaged in a tough battle at the Grand Olympic Auditorium in Los Angeles, California. In the 12th round, Pintor landed a crushing combination that knocked Owen out cold. Okay, one punch, one hit a quitter. Okay, knocked him out cold. Owen never regained consciousness and died 7 weeks later from brain injuries. He was in a coma for 7 weeks. Okay, of like a little over a month and a half. Never regained consciousness. The tragedy deeply affected Pintor, who reportedly considered retirement, and remained haunted by the incident for years. He later visited Owen's family in Wales and paid respects at his grave, a gesture that was widely praised for his humility and class. And when they unveiled the statue of Owen in Wales, his family requested that Pintor be the one to unveil it. Mm-hmm. Yep. And there's it is Owen and Pintor. So I don't know if that's Owen right there or not. I don't think that's Owen. Yes, it is too. Right here. I don't know who that is. Oh, there's him and Owen. I don't know who that is. But anyway, yeah. The family showed a lot of class. And so did Pintor. He went all the way over there and visited his grave and unveiled the statue. Losing the title in the war with Wilfredo Gomez. Losing the title in the war with Gomez. In 1983, Pintor moved up to super bantamweight to challenge the great Wilfredo Gomez of Puerto Rico. And the Puerto Rican knockout artist and WBC champion. This fight was on December 3rd, 1982 in New Orleans. And this is considered one of the most brutal and thrilling fights of the 1980s. Gomez and Pintor exchanged heavy fire for 14 grueling rounds before Gomez stopped Pintor in the 14th. It was a fight that defined both men's toughness, and it earned Fight of the Year honors from the Ring magazine. That's one of the greatest Mexico versus Puerto Rico fights of all time there. Pintor and Gomez. Yeah, that was 1983. Yeah, Pintor went up a class to challenge Gomez. And there they are. He was up there late. It's Pintor and Gomez right there. Fight of the Year for Ring magazine. That's the big one, Ring magazine, you know. Not now. I think Oscar, Turkey Alice Sheik, somebody got it now. Later, I'm talking about with Ned Fleisch and all them, the original editor. And on up through because Ned Fleisch lived like up into the 70s, 60s, 70s, I think. Because he was at the second Ali Lister fight. He still was the owner and editor of it then, and Ring Magazine was the thing then. Fights of the Year, that was the one that originally started Fights and Fighters of the Year, Ring Magazine. Later career and comeback. Now, Pintor beat Juan Meza by decision, knocking down Meza twice in the fight, winning the WBC Super Bantamweight title. Okay. Pintor lost that title on the scale in the stakes fight, but he was stopped by Samart, a Thai fighter, in the 5th round, who was a former Muay Thai champion, turned boxing star. So he lost the title on the scales, then went on to lose the fight. Okay. Pintor retired with a final record of 56 wins, 14 losses, 2 draws, 42 wins by knockout. I didn't have to go look for that one. And finally is Lionel Rose, the Australian fighter. Lionel Rose, who finished off our 6 lower weight class fighters today. He was from Australia. Lionel was. Very colorful fighter. That's why I put him in here, Lionel. Very colorful fighter. In a minute. Jose, like we do Jose, yeah. Okay, Lionel Rose. I can get this piece of junk to work. There we go. Lionel. You might know how to spell Lionel? It is. I spelled it wrong, but it still came up. Okay, Lionel Rose. Is our final subject for today. Okay. Man. Oh, it didn't. Lionel Rose. Now, oh my goodness, now it won't come up. Oh, there it is. I can really say it. It's looking at it like 5 minutes to 2. The Rose of a Stolen Generation. Okay, Lionel Rose. He's the final fighter for today. Friday, we're going to talk about Ezra Charles for the profile. Tomorrow is going to be one of the countries. Take me up to like the Jays. It's not only humbling, but startling what age can do to us. When the autumn of life begins, the idea that was you gradually fades into a tattered semblance. The degree of change varies from one to the next, of course. It is less forgiving in others. Now, before he left us, Lionel Rose could have been another person. A chiseled figure had become bloated. The features of an expressive face had sunken, and a distinct voice had deepened. To contemplate that this man used to be the best 118-pound fighter in the world was a good exercise for the brain. Had you pointed them out to a contemporary, it would have taken them a few moments before they approached the jaded Aborigine. Until finally their reservations were no more, as he reminisced with that emotive clarity which defines retired boxers. A cigarette was often in one hand, though it was a pipe that fans were familiar with. Unlike some gimmick, Rose had taken up the more ostentatious method of smoking as a result of continuing convincing his folks that it was better for him. He enjoyed lighting up the jury. Seeing his mom enjoyed lighting up the jury weren't so incriminating on the tobacco front. There had been bigger bullets to dodge than nicotine addiction. Racial backlash, an attempted stabbing, and escaping a riot were various lows during a troublesome reign. Inside the ring wasn't much prettier, with every championship victory going the distance, and none were easy. Problems making the weight had bothered Lionel for some time, but just when he thought he would cut his body some slack, a handsome pay packet forced him to go through the same draining rigmarole. An ambitious and ruthless Ruben Olivares was not the easy night's work he needed. So distant is Australia from other civilizations that you can't imagine what kind of celebrity Rose enjoyed whilst championing. That he was the first Aborigine to wear the gold meant a great deal, but the subsequent celebration erupted like one that had been brewing ever since Les Darcy's tragic tale. Victoria's small town of Warragul is where his colorful life began. More accurately, he sprouted in a place called Jackson's Track, where a community of Aborigines huddled together. Father did the logical thing and taught his son how to stab the left and drop a right hand. With his regimen being fairly lenient, young Lionel had plenty of time to throw his fists into a not-so-forgiving flour bag. Oh, there is Lionel right there, too. As a matter of fact. There's Lionel. Okay, Jarrell Hattie's in the building, and Kensaw Love won. Yeah, we just talked about some 6 lower weight fighters today. The final one is Lionel Rose, but salute Jarrell Hattie and Kensaw Love won. Yeah, this is the final one. You know, because the lower weight class fighters are always underrated and not as popular. They don't get their props. There was some great fighters down there. And you see some great fighters down there with knockout, one punch knockout capability too. Like Carlos Durante ended his career with a 95.4% knockout ratio, 66 wins, 63 knockouts. But Lionel Rose right now, very colorful fighter from Australia. Okay. His father taught him to box when he was very young. Okay. So Lionel. So ultimately, this community was moved along, which brought Rose into contact with Jack and Shirley Rennie. And in a true stereotype, Lionel became part of the family. The back garden was used to practice his nifty moves in, and the satisfied entrance trips were made to Melbourne's West Stadium, where local hero George Bracken defended his 135-pound title. Okay? So, watching his countryman entertain the masses was a clincher, and an amateur career got underway for Lionel. The 1964 Tokyo Olympics were indeed too good to be true, and a measly half point prevented Rose from entering them. Be it national failure or glory, the logical move usually follows, and he turned professional. Well muscled and close to 5'7", you can see that Lionel was a hefty bantamweight from the get-go. Bracken's second home, the Festival Hall, was adopted, and with each fight, Rose fattened his quickly forming fan base. Little traveling was required. The furthest he ventured was to Christchurch in New Zealand, dropping a 6 and 10 round decision was as bad as it got for the teenager. Fitness, also considered a formality, was one of the best things Rose had going for him. Being in great shape and inuring yourself to going the distance are two very different things. Prior to challenging for Australian honors for the Australian Championship, Lionel had gone 12 on 8 different occasions. Less than 15 wasn't set to cause too much bother, and Rose took Noel Kuhn's title in the process. Championship of Australia, bantamweight title of Australia. Now spectators begin to realize they weren't merely watching some domestic king. In the attendance, it showed. And so they had something there. Now Sydney's Rocky Galilari had challenged for the WBC flyweight title and remained a good fighter to have on your record. So he fought him. The fight was held in the nation's capital, and the atmosphere was as you'd expect. 14,000 fans were part of a momentous evening, but there was more of a battle amongst supporters than there was between the principals. For a man of just 19 years old, it was a performance of alluring maturity. Nothing was hurried. Everything slid into place. With a meaningful economy, Rose got the fight on his terms and kept it there. Galilari would not quit pressing, but a well-taught head definitely tipped from side to side, following the punches. Lionel abused Rocky's eyebrows with a sharp left jab, and then he abused his faculties with a chopping right cross. Okay? Now, one thing Rose's mere 12 knockouts don't relay was his ability to punch. After being dropped for the second time, this guy was put on a stretcher. Mm-hmm. He only had 12 knockouts, but wow, this opponent left there on a stretcher. Wow. And Lionel's boxing abilities was very complete. He could force more aggressive fighters to box. A retreating or check hook came naturally, and he developed a close relationship with his flashlight jab. Then the use of the ring was made, backing in the corners, slipping to the side, and reclaiming ring center. This led the way for a high quality, almost Aguero type of operating. Having considered the opponent's mannerisms, Lionel could fight in virtually faultless spurts, making opponents fall all over themselves to get at him, only to be planted with oh so crisp counters. Now, he was only ranked 6th at that time, right? But an auspicious phone call ended with a shot at the world title, okay? Going up for his first title shot. He was only ranked 6th, but somebody had some connections. So he went to Japan, right? And it was rumors that he had a damaged hand. That did not make for an ideal scenario. And guess who he challenged? The fighting Geraldo himself, the man that beat Ida Joffrey twice. Only 2 losses of Ida Joffrey's career. So his first title shot was against the fighting Geraldo. The morning road work proved to be rather hazardous, with Lionel twice hitting the deck on icy pavement. Fell out on his morning road runs. He later put his many fans at ease, insisting that a functional hand and tiptoe stamina would be on display come February 27th. And the fight was at Nihon Budokan Stadium. And it was set up for 10,000 predominantly Oriental fans, okay? And the national treasure is exactly what the fighting Geraldo was in Japan. And the majority was there to see the man who had toppled Ida Joffrey twice, okay? And with each semi-successful attack, the crowd erupted, amplifying the champion's effort. Repeated warnings for allegedly slapping with his left hand. A valuable point was eventually taken from Lionel Rose. Going up against the fighting Geraldo, then he got a point taken from him. Wow. For the first time in a world title fight, all 3 judges were Japanese. And while we wouldn't want to insinuate a bias, given the circumstances, it would be fair to assume that Lionel was running up a slight incline. Yeah, he was definitely going uphill. Fighting the fighting Geraldo in Japan, and all 3 judges were Japanese. Okay? He was definitely going up a little hill there. Okay? Okay, so yeah, let's finish this off, because it's almost time for Just Do Boxing. But Lionel took the decision. So that gives you an idea of how well he performed. He went to Japan, beat the fighting Geraldo with 3 Japanese judges, okay? It would not be excessive to award Lionel with 10 of the 15 rounds. The tempestuous assault that had spoiled Ida Joffrey's explosive boxing ran into an assortment of stinging jabs and swift hooks. Told you he had that devastating check hook, Lionel did. The position of the fighting Geraldo's blocky head seemed to be perfect for Lionel's whipping left jab. Not only did he land the much cleaner blows, but his blissful footwork made the fighting Geraldo look very average. Okay? Made the world champion look average. Down for a no count in the 9th and rocked in the 14th. The face of the fighting Geraldo also told a story with a cut brow, bloody nose, and tender cut-up skin. A majority decision went the right way. And at just 19 years old, Lionel became the first Aboriginal world champion and the youngest world champion. And it really was a unanimous decision. But remember, he was in Japan fighting the Japanese champion in front of 3 Japanese judges, and one of them called it a draw. But the other 2, fortunately, went the right way. Okay? And Lionel became the first Aborigine world champion, and at that time, the youngest at 19 years old. Lionel Rose. When he flew back to Australia, scenes akin to Leamington's spar after Randolph Turpin's victory over Sugar Ray Robinson were in full swing. Thousands coated the streets of Melbourne to applaud their little hero, who was paraded through the masses in an open-top car. Lionel was indifferent to the idea, but recalling Japan's actions in World War II, many felt this was a victory for the entire country of Australia. This international needle was reciprocated when, after outpointing Takeo Sakari, a lone fan attempted to stab Rose with a 6-inch knife. Fortunately, the police disrupted his mission, and as Rose finally remembered, they proceeded to beat the shit out of him. He went back over there, a fan tried to stab him when he beat another Japanese fighter over there. He said the police beat the shit out of him. Right? BN Boxing News in the building. What's up, BN? Winding down. We looked at 6 lower weight class stars today. Finishing up with Lionel Rose. But salute BN Boxing News. Good to see you today, bro. Okay, let's finish this off. Yeah. He had a close fight against Chuco Castillo and won that one. Went to Mexico for that one. So he was famous for going to other fighters' countries and beating them. Okay. And after the decision, about 500 Mexicans showed their dissatisfaction. And seats were slashed, bottles were chucked, fires were started, and vehicles were capsized in the parking lot. Around $200,000 worth of damage was done. Many were injured, including the referee, Dick Young. And Lionel had went to a restaurant down the street from the arena, and they was outside waiting for him. He was stuck in there till 4:00 a.m. the next morning. They was scared to come out, right? Yeah. And then when they decided to go to England and face Alan Rudkin, they spent a good amount of time wondering what was waiting around the corner for him. Right? But yeah, he had a lot of success at 118 pounds. But then he, I think he lost the title on the scale. But Lionel Rose, the first Aborigine champion, and at that time, the youngest champion in boxing history at 19. Okay? But I appreciate everybody that came through today. We looked at Carlos Zarate, 66 wins, 63 by knockout, 95.4 knockout ratio. Ricardo Finito Lopez finished his career 51-0, 1 draw. Okay, never been in his life. Ida Joffre, thought to be the best Brazilian fighter ever. Jose Legre, another great Mexican fighter, former champion. Lupe Pintor. No, Jose Legre is Cuban. Cuban. Great Cuban fighter. When Castro had the revolution down there, he went to Mexico, then he ended up in Spain, where his career, majority of his career played out. Kirchner, another great Cuban boxer, was living in Spain, and he became his trainer. That's the reason he went to Spain, to hook up with Tenero. Lupe Pintor, another great Mexican champion. He had some wars with Carlos Zarate, Wilfredo Gomez. Yeah, he had some absolute wars. And Lionel Rose, first Aborigine boxing champion. And the youngest at that time when he won the title at age 19. Youngest champion up, right? But appreciate you being Boxing News. Appreciate you stopping by today. Glad you enjoyed the show. Okay. And we'll be back tomorrow with another one. Be in Boxing News, Ken Saul Love 1, Your Real Hattie, Al Booger, Bruce Gas Boxing, Jazz and more, Mike Mazik, Mike Rim, Irony Boxing, and Miss Cass. Appreciate everybody for stopping through today. Join me tomorrow at 2 for another episode. Because if it's Monday through Friday, 2 p.m., it's the Box Story bringing you all that boxing history. Just Do Boxing is on deck. This is Cass Sports, the Box Story. Appreciate everybody. Have a great afternoon.